Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Pillow Talks with Klei. On last week's episode, we tackled how our choices affect our action in pursuing freedom and what are the consequences of having a freedom to choose. We also learned that freedom can only be genuine when one takes responsibility for it. And for it to become responsible, one should be prepared to defend it with good reasons. In this week's episode, we will be talking about the human person, what intersubjectivity is, and how genuine communication works in interaction. Let's dive right into it. Our topic for this week will begin like this. In our previous lesson, we came to the understanding that the human person has the freedom to realize his or her potentials, that ultimately, we are responsible for consolidating our personality by the decisions and choices that we make. This gives weight to our responsibility for our own transcendence. If we can, therefore, never fully know the other person because they are definitely transcendent, how can we possibly understand them? Everyone has its own differences that cannot be discovered by one another, and having those differences, we begin to criticize each and one of us. However, we should learn to accept these differences since it is vital in human relations. As we're starting to adapt to our environment and find our way to live a normal and peaceful life, we may encounter people who treat others as mere objects because they only look at others as bodies like machines. One example of this are factory owners who do not care if their workers do not get enough salary every day, that they are working as long as they meet the quota needed for the day. Another scenario is that those kasambahay are yelled at, snubbed, screamed at, or even forced to live inhumanely because their amo only sees them as machines that can wash and cook. Prostitutes are not respected because they are only viewed as bodies that give pleasure to their clients. Homeless children who were abandoned by their parents are being swayed in banquetas because it is prohibited. All of us should really know this. The human person is not an object. She only appears to be one because of her body. Her body is what makes her a thing like other things. You cannot treat a person as an object without hurting the other's feelings. This is because the human person also has an inner reality compressed in the concept of an embodied spirit. This is the reason why we do not refer to human beings as objects but as subjects. The relationship among subjects is referred to in philosophy as intersubjectivity. Intersubjectivity is a relationship that is supported by genuine communication founded on mutual respect for each other as subjects and on co-presence, the openness of one's presence to the presence of the other. Through intersubjectivity, we transcend the labels that society puts on us, and we recognize an incalculable inherent value of a person. Our life is not human if it is concentrated on itself. Life becomes human, that is, it is humanized, as soon as we decenter ourselves from ourselves, when the center of our life is on the welfare of another. We should take in our minds that Gabriel Marcel in our previous topic said to human relations, human living is a living of something other than itself. It is the centering of one's life on the welfare of another. Did you know that intersubjectivity also directs us to examine the expectation we have of others to consider the otherness of the other. It's removing those social categories and labels that serve as barriers that prevent us from having a real personal encounter with another person. First, the self-resist totalization. Totalization is a denial of the other person's differences, the denial of the otherness of the other. One example of this is when you are in a guessing game and the host asks you to guess the person behind the curtain. Totalization will strike when you claim that you already know who the person is before the host can even speak the hint to you. And yet, the self is naturally prone to violence against differences and variations. The tendency to totalize the other person is because of fear of uncertainty. To get rid of this fear of uncertainty, some people resort to violence. Violence is what takes place when in the face of the other, who refuse to see the person that bears it and force the other to fit into the box of our expectations. Examples are culture bashing, gender and social categories. However, there is an alternative to violence, which is to humbly accept the other as different from us. A genuine encounter with another person is an encounter in which we tame our tendency to overcome the other and imprison him within our demands and expectations. It is an encounter in which we accept the other will never be fully the same as we are and yet still be a person. Sometimes we think that we understand the other person when we think of it would be like if I were in their situation. We will never fully understand the world of a person offended by harassment unless we experience it ourselves. Until that time, we should be more careful in making judgments and conclusions about them. The best that we can give them is our listening silence. We need genuine communication for this one. Genuine communication is a dialogue of human beings based on mutual sharing of selves, acceptance, and sincerity. Genuine communication only happens if, first, if you realize that you will never be able to know the other person completely. Second, if you will go beyond social categories and labels and constantly recognize the person behind the label. And lastly, if you will open yourself to the possibility that you will learn something different from him or her. Did you learn other ideas in our episode for this week? Did you enjoy it? Let me know by just leaving a comment. Just like the video and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will be updated to my future videos and episodes that will talk about philosophy. Again, thank you for listening and see you again for another episode of Pillow Talks with Klei. Paalam and mabuhay. Peace out.